take number 97. Lord. So today we're talking about makeup brushes. Now, some of you who actually write me little notes and talk to me will know that I have been promising a makeup brush video. And I actually had 2 of them made, and something bad happened to both of them. And now today I am back filming again, and I have messed up like on every single take so far. So let's hope that this one is the charm. So makeup brushes for women 45 and over. Why do we need them? Which ones do we need? What type should we buy? I'm going to tell you all of that today. Now, before we get started, I want to share this with you. This is just a quarter of the makeup brushes that I own. But these are the ones I love the most. These are the ones that I use day to day. Now, not all of them are used in every makeup look. In fact, a few of them are regularly used, and those are the ones we're going to focus on today. So let's get started and talk about what types of brushes that you should have in your collection now. The first part of a good makeup application is getting smooth, even coverage. And that can be done sometimes, depending on the makeup foundation that we're using, by our fingers, which is the way that I was taught when I was young. But then there was the advent of sponges, and many makeup artists used white triangular sponges, which are fine. And then there were these newfangled sponges. These sponges are great for thinning out makeup and giving kind of a much more even finish. They also can be used for applying powder. And the way that you use them is you get them wet completely, you wring them out till almost dry. In fact, what I usually do is wring it out in the sink, and then I wring it out again in a towel so that it's soft and pliable but moist, not wet. And this is a great way, especially if you're having a lot of settling of makeup, like I get settling into these areas here. Sometimes around the eye area. If you're using a thicker foundation like the Estee Lauder Double Wear, applying it with a sponge is the bomb. I mean, that really does a beautiful job with that particular foundation. I can attest, love the foundation, but using the Beauty Blender to apply it is the magic touch. But I use a much thinner foundation now, and I've found that using a brush is the optimal way of applying it, the foundation. This one here is by Lisa J. It's a foundation brush, and you'll notice that it kind of has a slightly angled tip. And this whole design to me is ideal for applying and blending the foundation into the skin. It actually really gives a smooth and beautiful coverage. Now, this one I think is around $35, but I have a less expensive one here by Real Techniques. I love this. I use it when this guy gets dirty, then I grab this one. And again, it has a very dense brush. It is rounded, and it just does a beautiful job. Now, both of these are synthetic, and that is a very good thing for foundation brushes that you will use with a wet foundation, because they need to be washed every week. They need to be washed very frequently. So having a synthetic brush is a really good way to go, because they don't get damaged as easily by being washed a lot. So in my opinion, that if you are applying foundation, these 3 tools are your good friends. So this happens to be the Real Techniques sponge, but there are many out on the market. And then a good foundation brush. The next thing that I think every woman needs in her arsenal is a good powder brush. I have two different, or actually I've got three different powder brushes that I use. The first is the La Mer powder brush. This is a domed powder brush. It is great for applying large amounts of loose powder and then buffing it back out. This is a finishing kind of step that I use, and I used to do it every single day, but now I do other types of techniques, so I'm not using it quite as much. But a nice domed, and this is also a synthetic brush, but this is a great way of applying powder. Now, there's two brushes that I have here. These are both by Sonia G. The first one is a powder foundation brush. Now, this is made for people that use powder foundation, obviously, but I also use it for finishing powder, and I use it to blend in between steps as I'm applying my whole makeup. And then this brush is also by Sonia G, and you'll notice that it has sort of a pointed tip. I love this for getting in under the eye area, and I love it for just tapping out into the T-zone where I have more oil, but it's really wonderful for under the eye area. So I would recommend a flat tipped or kabuki style natural bristle brush for applying powder and blending powder, and then a kind of a tapered brush for applying powder under the eyes and blending it out so you don't get that crocodile-y kind of thing that sometimes happens if you're trying to set your concealer and you get too much powder up there. Now, the final two brushes that I think are really important are a bronzer brush, which can also be used to sort of create some contouring, and then a blush brush. And these two are also by Sonia G. This brush I use for bronzing. It's angled, and that allows me to sort of get that more chiseled look and still be blended because it's so soft. So this guy just kind of comes up really beautifully, and then I can also use it to just really blend things out really nicely all across my face. And this I love, especially for my new Charlotte Tilbury bronzer. This is the one that I really love for that. The final brush that I think every woman needs is a blush brush. This one is from Sonia G, and it is a rounded kind of blush brush. And I like to kind of come a little bit higher than I did when I was younger. So I come right under the eye and then slightly higher, and then a little round domed brush like this allows me to kind of come into the apples of my cheeks and just kind of create a beautiful kind of blended blushed look. And then if I feel like I've gotten a little bit too much, then I go back with this flat brush and just blend everything back out with powder. And that's sort of how you go about getting that kind of airbrushed, really beautiful kind of look. Now, the number of brushes that I would say that I think are really really needed would be like these four. And so this is that flat tapered brush, or the flat foundation powder foundation brush. This is the tapered powder brush. This is the blush, and then this was the one that I had been using for contouring and bronzing. Those would be my top suggestions. And then a brush like the La Mer is sort of the frosting on the cake. It's a little more expensive, but it kind of does that beautiful finishing that I think is a really important element of really good makeup. Now for eyeshadow, I have Obviously a huge kit. Not all of this is eyeshadow. There's a few or eyeshadow brushes, but most of it is eyeshadow brushes actually. And I think if you're going to do a very, very basic eye look, there are a couple brushes that I think are really important. The first two that I pulled out here, this one is a synthetic brush for eye concealer, and it's by Sonia Kashuk. I got it at Target. And some of you may know from watching my other videos that my technique for concealer is just going diagonally where I have darkness. So I'll often tap on the concealer and then I'll use a brush like this to just come in and smooth it out. And then this It Cosmetics brush here is my secret weapon to blending and kind of really creating that airbrushed kind of look around the eye area. It goes right in, it blends things out beautifully. So these two would be, along with my two foundation favorites, would be beautiful for foundation and concealer. And don't worry, I will put these all linked below. Now, when it comes to eyeshadow, there are a couple steps that I do, and you can make a decision of whether or not you feel that these steps are necessary or not. But usually I will use a flat brush like this Trish McAvoy brush. Now, this is one that goes back, gosh, it's probably, I bought it in the 90s. It was very expensive at the time. Again, one of those kind of cold sweats moments where I'm buying eyeshadow, I think, and then the girl says, well, why don't you buy the brush too? And the bill is like up over $100. And I was like, oh my gosh. Now it seems like makeup has moved toward that direction, but back then it was a lot this was a big investment. It's a flat, firm brush, natural bristle. But the thing I do with it is I go in and I apply a light dusting of powder shadow very close to my skin tone, just slightly lighter to even out the skin tone color. And so this guy I use every single day to do that. And the reason I choose a denser brush for that purpose is that it holds more powder. So when you have a dense brush like this one, it holds and packs down the powder. When you have a soft brush, this kind of soft brush, it blends and diffuses the powder out. So the next brush I think that every woman needs in her arsenal is a good crease brush. This is the Tom Ford crease brush. I got it from Beautylish. Again, don't worry, I've got these down below. And it's beautiful because it fits right into that orbital bone. Is it called the orbital bone? Well, anyway, it's this bone here, and it's beautiful. You can just get it nicely in there and then just blend out and up. And so you'll notice that the tip is kind of full, and then it goes to kind of a little bit of a point, and that little bit of a point, that soft point, is that perfect shape that go into the crease area. I have this one here. This one is by Tom Ford, and then I have a less expensive version. This one is by Sigma. And this one you can just get right off of Amazon. I think it's like $15 or $16. It's a very similar shape, and it's, again, beautiful. Both of them are synthetic brushes. They both hold powder nicely, and then you can just use them to kind of go in and do that special crease work. Now, most women do use a color at their crease that helps to provide depth to the eye, and if you do nothing else, just a little dash of bronzer even on a brush like this can give you a wonderful look. So I think everyone needs a crease brush. Now, the next thing I think everyone needs is my special secret brush. This one, let me see if I can find it. Ah, here it is. This one is, I think it's called a Worker 2. It's a Sonia G brush. It is sort of thin here, and then it's sort of rounded. And what I do with this is how I create the lift with a darker color. I just kind of come right straight up with it on both sides. And then I use another brush to sort of gently blend everything back out. But this guy is more densely packed, so you're going to get a nice color payoff at the outer edge of your eye. You can also use it on the lid and so forth, but I just happen to use that technique because it actually helps to lift my eyes. And then the final brush I think everyone needs is to have a brush to help blend the shadow. I think one of the biggest mistakes that women, mature women make is not blending enough, not blending the edges of the colors and so forth. And so having a fluffy blending brush is, I think, a must. So my friends, those are the basic brushes that I think everyone sort of needs in their arsenal. And so you'll be able to see that I actually have a lot of other brushes here that I didn't show you. They're more specialty brushes. They're meant to do all sorts of fancy things, and occasionally I do fancy things, but these are the basics, and quite frankly there aren't that many. In fact, for eyes I only have 3. So yeah. In fact, wait, let's do that all over again. These 3 brushes I think are the basics, and then I had this one, which was a lesser pricer one, so trying to kind of keep it economical for people. So 3, I think, basic eyeshadow brushes. Wait, I'm wrong. I actually did 4. God, you guys. 4. And then I have some suggestions that I'll put below that are less expensive in case if you want some really nice brushes but at a lower price point. So those are the basics. Now, some of you asked also about washing brushes. And so I have a couple of things to talk about when it comes to washing brushes and caring for your brushes. Now, natural bristle brushes, like this one, don't need to be washed often. In fact, it's better if you're not using dark pigments to kind of let them go quite a while before you wash them. And when you do wash them, you want to make sure that the barrel and everything is downward and that water does not go into this part. They hand roll these bristles, and that's a reason why this type of brush is quite expensive. So it's natural bristled, it's hand rolled, glued, and then put together. And if you let water go back into this part of it, the glue can loosen and then you lose the hairs in the brush, and you don't want that. So number 1, on a natural bristle brush, I do not wash them often. I wash them when I feel like they're starting to get built up, like this one is getting near needing a wash. Because you can see that it's a lighter color bristles and it's got a lot of powder in it, and so it's going to start to affect the way that the color pays out on my eyes. So this one is in need of a bath. However, the makeup brushes that I use for applying concealer and foundation, these need to be washed weekly. And I actually have several of these, like I have a bunch that are already washed, so that I only use these for a day or 2 before I set them aside to be washed again. And the same is true with these. These are being used around your eyes. They need to be washed regularly. So what do you do? The question is, do you use a liquid like this one that I got from Target, or do you use something like this? This is the Sephora, and this is an older container of it. I need to get some more, but this is a soap actually, and then in the lid is a textured kind of brush cleaning thing. It's like a rubbery thing. I keep it like this. So this, you'll sometimes see these made bigger, and you know, people put them in their sink and use it. I just put it into the lid of this, and then I have the soap here. Now, what I do is I will take my brush and I will get it wet, and I'll make sure that, again, I try to keep it facing downward in the running water, and I will like loosen up and kind of start to like make sure that all the bristles are wet. Then once everything's wet, then I rub it into the soap and I go around, and then I use this and I just keep rinsing it and rinsing it and rinsing it until all of the makeup comes out. And sometimes it requires going back and forth, rinsing this and seeing how clean I got it, and then going back into the soap again, and then again back to rinsing it using this textured thing, and opening the bristles a little bit to make sure that I'm getting into the middle and getting things cleaned out. I'm not holding this high enough, but actually sort of getting into the middle so that I can make sure that the bristles are getting cleaned and cleaned all the way through. So what is this for? Oftentimes these sprays are for sanitizing or cleaning in between colors. So makeup artists will often have a product like this one to kind of, if they're like doing an elaborate eye look, for example, and they didn't bring tons and tons of brushes, they will often use one of these kinds of cleaners to quickly clean the brushes in between. Some of them are actually even like dry, and then they just wipe it off into a paper towel, and that way that allows them to keep working. But this type of product can be very drying to natural bristle brushes, and that's the reason why it's better to go about getting this product from Sephora, or this type of product from Sephora. And I think Beautylish also has their own brand of brush washing that are specially formulated for natural bristle brushes, and specially formulated to rinse easily out of the brushes and also to dissolve the makeup, because some makeups really do get in there. They really hold tight to the skin and to the natural bristle brushes as well. So those would be the tips and the items. Don't worry, I've got everything listed below, and I just hope that this helps. And